Okay, so now we're just gonna quickly look at the neck and probably also the head. Let's see how fast we can go. So this is where we were last time in our video for the spine. So I'm gonna continue with head and neck now, and I'm gonna unhide the body. Actually, let's hide it again. Let's quickly kill this piece so that we don't need that anymore. And let's get the body back. So now we need to think about neck, and I'm just gonna go into the side view to get a feeling of where I should place those joints. I'm thinking something like this. I think this skin can be done separately for something else, like we want to make it kind of maybe jiggly, but for now let's just try and start and place some joints. So the first thing I do here is the same as we did before for the spine. I'm just gonna lay out some joints. You know what, I'm actually gonna go with a little bit fewer. I think I'm gonna go with just 4. Yeah, just 4 should be good. And then let's try and just get that moving. Something like this. There you go. So I'm just selecting all of them, dragging them out here. I can't remember the orientation we kept for the spine, so I'm quickly just gonna check what orientation I had. So set in negative x-axis. Let's make sure that's the same for all these. Set and set and set. That's perfect. So next, selecting them and making them a little bit bigger. Selecting the neck, side view. I'm just gonna move that down here. So I'll try and just use these orientation on the joints that we've been talking about before. So let's see, I gotta rotate in my Z axis. This should be this one. Oh wait, so it's going for world, so that would probably just be now I'm just trying here. I think I'm gimbaling. It doesn't really matter because now I'm just gonna use this trick that I showed you guys before, where I can actually rotate the joints. And I want to place that head behind the neck. I also want to make sure that this one is far enough up. So I'm thinking something like this, and then just to think about it like as in like a kind of dragon head. You know, it has these spikes that comes out, but where does the skull actually start? So something like this maybe. Yeah, so I just want to get the base of that skull as my neck, and my joints don't need to be like precisely between each other. I'm just trying to think where it's smart to have it, and I want to have them quite. I still want to have them quite even, but I mean, there's no rules that it has to be the same numbers. So right now I have this rotation here, so I need to freeze that down to my orientation. So I'll do like that, and you can see it immediately just dump down here and reorders my rotations basically. And that's that for placing the joints in the neck. So what I'll do now is also duplicate the last joint on the neck, and then I'll just drive it out, and I'll take it out of the hierarchy, and I'll zero that out. And let's see, something is up here, so let's zero that out as well. And now we just need to, so this is gonna be my head joint, so I'm just gonna duplicate that one more time as well. Put it something like here. The reason why I'm not really too concerned where this end joint on the head is, I just want to have something that's on a flat plane so my rotations are the same. So if I parent that underneath this one, so let's see, will that actually be smart? Let's think about this. Yeah, it's not the worst. So yeah, parent that underneath the neck. Some people would argue that you could just have like a controller here and make that control the neck, but I like to separate it out, so this is how we're gonna do it. And then the next thing is, normally I would probably not model a character with an open mouth, but this creature was not made for, I don't think Henning intended it to be rigged. I think he intended it to look like a cool model. Also, it's not symmetrical, so that'll be tricky for the eyes, but we'll sort it out. So the next thing here is placing the joint for the jaw. And usually what I say is that if it had ears, wherever they may be here, I would go for a little bit in front of the ears and then a little bit lower. And some people like to have maybe even 2 joints for the jaw, so you can translate one down and rotate the other one. But since this is just a simple introductory to basic rigging, and this is more thinking facial rigging than it's actually thinking quadruped rigging, so I just want to keep it brief. So I'm just going to parent that underneath my head joint. Set parent. Also, I want to quickly make a save here. 6 neck head. Okay, so let's continue here. Right, so we need to orient this joint here because that's obviously wrong. So I'm just gonna unparent my jaw again and go to skeleton, orient joint, and do as we've done before. Do my Z axis and put it in -X. So once again, the way it works, you pick your primary axis, you pick your secondary axis, and then you tell which world axis it should follow. So this is normally X axis, and I told the Z axis to go into this to the X axis minus position. So that's here. Okay, so now I'm just gonna create some controllers, and the reason why I want to do both the head and the neck at the same time is because we're just gonna go with, for now, as we did with the spine, we're gonna build something and then we can upgrade it later. So I'm just gonna go with some FKs, and the reason why I do that is just to block something out. So every time you make a rig, you have to think of it as a, it's like painting like classic drawings or anything like that. You have to do the broad strokes before you should go into detail, else your picture's just gonna look like a mess. So I'm just gonna snap around these controllers here. So this will be the head, and then I'm thinking I'm just gonna go for some circles or something for the so we can actually move that all the way down here and just create something like that. Yeah, by the way, as always, I'm pretty rough with my shapes when I'm just blocking out my rig, because I don't want to go into that habit of just sitting and shaping controllers for too long, because you become obsessed with it, really. So let's take these ones, and first of all I want to rename all this stuff, and I want to delete this. So I just need a controller. The first thing I do is say modify search and replace name, and then I'm gonna replace the spine with head. So now it says head at JA, but it's also saying IK driver, and I don't really like that. So let's see how can we get rid of that. We can say underscore IK driver underscore CTRL. Replace that with GTRL. Let's see. Okay, that's way better. And yeah, it should be oriented. Okay, they're actually oriented wrong. That's problematic. Let's see how my other controllers. Okay, no, that's fine. So let's see here. So I'm just gonna say don't show shapes, and then I'm just gonna select my controller and select my head and head joint and go parent constraint, and I want to keep that maintain offset, meaning that I'm not moving the joint's position. I'm just gonna keep it as this. And now simple head, I'm just gonna paint that. Let's see here in the shape under the object display, and here we can see, let's keep that yellow like that. And next I'm just gonna do the jaw. So I'm basically just gonna take this controller and duplicate it around, really, because don't want to spend too much time on that. So in this case, I can tell you like what we're planning on doing while I'm shaping this, or what I'm planning on doing. So I want to make an FK neck here, and then in the next video, in the upgrade video, we're gonna change that neck into a IK neck. So we have actually a mix of IK and FK necks. So you can basically choose to use the IK if you want to. Since the neck is really short, it'll be interesting to see what animators will choose. But that's why, since we by now know how to make an IK spline pretty easy from when we did the spine, it should take us a very short time to just upgrade this FK that I'm making in a second. So I'm just gonna take this now, and that looks good. So I'm just gonna parent constrain this to this. So I select my jaw, my joint, my jaw controller and my joint afterwards. Constrain, parent constraint. Oh, there we go. Now we have a jaw, so I'm just gonna say modify search and replace. Say head, jaw. Oh yeah, so we also need to name our joints quickly. So let's call this neck, neck, AJ, JNT. Just paste that into all of these guys. So let's call that. So this is the head joint. And I'm just gonna steal that name. And I'm gonna call this end. And then I'm gonna call this one for B. Just quickly naming these guys. And let's call this M jaw, AJ, JNT, and AJ, sorry, end. And we can parent this underneath here now. And what we're also gonna do is parent the jaw controller. Let's get rid of that one. So I'm parenting the jaw controller under the head controller. So now when I move the head, the jaw is obviously following. I want to do the same thing for the neck. So as you can see, this is just a super easy process really. So I'm just let's steal that. Let's steal this neck. What I want to do for the neck is I actually want to orient my controller so they're actually pointing downwards. So the way I'm going to do that is just quickly parenting. I duplicated my controller and just parent it underneath that joint. So if I just select joint and select my controller, unhide. So if I hit Alt H, I hide. You know how you can hit Control H to hide everything? If I hit Alt H, I hide everything but my selection. So sort of like an inverse hide. And then if I want to get out of that hidden, I Control Shift and H, and then I go out. So Alt H, super fast. It's like a worse version of isolate. But the good thing is that I don't need to move my hand over to the eye, which I can reach on my keyboard. So I just think that's faster. You can obviously have your own preferences. So I'm just gonna do the rotation here. And before we do that, I'm actually just gonna check, because I didn't do my rotation here, so I want to just get that rotation. So now I don't want to take this Y rotation and rotate it, because then all my controllers are not the same rotation. But in this case, I just wanted to get that, well, the small rotation of the neck, so our controllers are actually pointing in the same direction as the neck is. So next thing is just shaping some controllers underneath this. So I think I'm gonna have a lecture at some point about controllers as well, like how they shouldn't be stacked up as crazy as this. So maybe I should show you guys just a video on just the thought process of like where I would place my controllers normally. So I think actually I'm gonna go with something like, you know, like this, because then we're sure that they don't really intersect too much. Okay, so quickly interrupted there. But anyways, I was saying that I'll probably do a lecture later on where we talk about like how we can make our rig a little bit nicer for the animators to work with by shaping some proper controls. But as I said, right now we're just blocking in the rig, so I don't want to get too stuck on just making controls. So I'm just gonna move on fast here. So right now I'm just gonna unparent my controller again from the hierarchy because I don't need them anymore inside my joint hierarchy. And then I'm gonna duplicate this down. And I'm thinking already now that I might have too many, so when we do the upgrade we might just remove a joint in the middle of the neck. But for now let's keep it like this, and let's just rename these guys. So if I say that's not a jaw, this is replace jaw with neck. And I do the same thing for all of these, except that here I just want to replace AJA with AJB. And this one, got some errors, I don't know what happens. And then AJC. Yeah, so you can see like A, B, C, and what is this one? Oh, so that's the head. Okay, great. So let's try and just delete these things. And let's parent them. So right now I'm just trying to keep my hierarchies pretty clean. So just saving my AJC under my B and my B under my A. And now I have like that little chain. And let's try and put the head underneath the neck as well, just so everything is cleaned up. And the last thing I'm doing is just selecting my controller and then selecting my joint and then just constraining that. So if I go constrain, select controller, select joint, go constraint, parent constraint. So parent constraint is basically occupying both translate and rotation. And let's do that for this one as well, and for this one. So here I'm just pressing G for repeating that process. So if I go in now and I just select these guys, yeah, our little FK chain here is working. So I'm just gonna save. So now we basically have like a super simple neck and head. The next thing we're gonna do is just place some joints for the eyes. So the reason why I'm just stopping a little bit here is because it is not symmetrical at all. So we're gonna have to do some tricks with the skinning. Usually what I'll do if I don't have something that's very symmetrical like this, I'll try and block in like a very low poly cage and just skin the low poly cage and then put this skinning onto my high poly like afterwards, because then I don't, like, that's how I would block in my weights. But let's see here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just select these two joints, excuse me. Select these two joints and do like before, where I Alt H, and I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna say in the control under the attribute editor, I can go into display and I can display my display handles, and I'll do that for both objects. It'll show me the pivot point of the objects right here. So the problem right now is that the pivot points, if I centralize the pivot point of this object, it's going to be exactly in the center, and then I have the center of my eye, and it'll be the same thing for this one. So what I'm going to do is just select these two, and I'm going to say modify center pivot. You can see they snap back here. So if I hit on X-raying, you can see that I have that pivot now. in the middle of the joint. So now I know where to place my skeleton joint. So if I just create like a random joint here, and then I can just hold down V like before and snap that to the middle. Just gonna scale that up. And I'm gonna do the same thing for this one over here. So let's call this R, I, AJ, GNT. And let's call this one for L, I, AJ, and GNT. And next thing, we're gonna duplicate both of them. Just drag them forward so we have some sort of forward vector. Sometimes we're just creating these kind of joints just to have something visually representing for us, because we're actually not going to use this joint. I just like to have them because we can see that everything is pointing in the right direction. So next thing is just orienting them. Perfect, set to the right settings. Same thing for this one. So in this case I don't want to mirror my joints, because when you're mirroring, you're actually mirroring the joints to, when I rotate in one axis, they would basically be rotating opposite each other like that, right? But with eyes, that's not exactly what I want. I want to make sure that when I rotate one in one direction, it'll be the same for both eyes, because you don't want to go cross-eyed when you rotate in one direction, else the animators have to pick 2 random curves instead of 1. So next thing I do here is just zero out all these extra rotations. And now we basically have eye joints, so I'm gonna go Control Shift H again, and we need to rename these joints as well. So let's call this end. There we go, and let's save that. And then we need to create some controllers. But let's quickly parent that into our hierarchy. So in this case, I'm just gonna take everything here and Control H. So I'm gonna hide it, and then I'm just gonna go down here to the grid. So I'm in top view right now, and I'm gonna basically create like a super simple shape for eyes. So I'm holding down X to snap to the grid. That's it. And then I'm gonna use this as my shape for my eye. I'm gonna keep that here for now, because first off, I don't wanna create this hierarchy again. So I'm just gonna select my jaw and duplicate that out, unparent, and select the joint. Alt H, so I can only see that. Then select my controller and put it on top of my eye. Do the same thing for the other eye. There you go, you actually have like 2 super ugly controllers here, but it'll be fine. So I have my arrow down here. I'm just gonna duplicate that again, so I have 2 of them, 1 for each eye. I'm just gonna go into shapes. I'm gonna select that shape. I'm gonna select the jaw control. And then we're gonna do like before, we say parent, relative, and parent the shape. Let's see if that actually got up here. And it is. So what I'll do now is just steal the name from the original shape and just kill that one. And there you go. So now we have an eye controller. I'm just gonna scale it up, but I'll do that in a second when I have the other one as well. Select the controller, and here if I click in the mail tab and I just hit the up arrow, I'll get my latest command. So same process. Let's see, did I actually select the same? Oh, it's this one. So let's just select, I'll just undid that. Select the controller, hit up, and delete the original one when I stolen that name. Let's just kill this. And now what I want to quickly do is just rename these. So let's go jaw, eye. And also we should do a modify search and replace name for M, and I want to replace that with L in this side, and in the other side obviously R. Apply, and then let's kill these wrong names, and let's unhide the shapes and select both controllers, and then if I hit F8 I go into component mode. Just want to scale them up. Make sure that you're in object mode when you're scaling, because if you have it in default it's gonna take in the middle of the two objects. If I take it by default and then by object here, object, you'll be, for every object you'll be on that local position. So I'm just gonna scale these things up, and right now I just want to unhide so I can see my creature. Go into side view, pick up the front parts of the arrow and just move that forward, something like that. And I'm thinking that I could just want to make them a little bit thinner. But yeah, now you can see like I'm concerning myself with shapes, and we're really not supposed to do that. So, but one can help to just quickly. I'm kidding. I should stop now. But okay, that's good enough for now. So select the controller, select the I joint, make that constraint that we know. So parent constraint. Select the controller, select the joint, make the parent constraint. If anybody is not familiar with parent constraints, please just let me know, and I'll make a lecture on the basics of parent constraints as well. Okay, so lastly here, it's two things we need to do. First, we need to parent it into a hierarchy, and secondly, we need to just color grade our controllers. So if we just quickly go into the shape here and activate the display object, enable override, sorry. And we're gonna go for red for the right eye, R for red as always, and blue for the left. Let's see where we got blue. I think that's in the beginning. There we go. Great. And then parent them back into the hierarchy and hit save. So now we actually have like a really I would say like probably the most simple way of rigging of it's only FKs, so it's only forward kinematics. We are gonna upgrade the neck to be an IK. That's the next step, and in the next video we'll also upgrade the eyes to have an aim, so the animators can basically just take that aim and put it somewhere, and then your creature will constantly look at that